Episode 35 with Jordan Angeli on the 9 Point Start with a Dream podcast.
Welcome to 9 Point Started with a Dream podcast. Our goal is to showcase the stories of athletes and the community that supports them by being authentic about their journey. Here's your host, Jacoby Gillum.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. This one was a tough one. I've been sitting on this one for maybe about 2 years now, just trying to avoid editing it, avoid listening to it because it brings back a lot of memories that I try to block out myself about my ACL journey, about the day I tore it, and just the overall recovery process and how it really changed my life. But this episode is with Jordan Angeli, and she goes through her ACL journey and the reason why she started the ACL Club. She's a former soccer player, and ultimately she's creating a platform that really helps make something that can be a rough experience less lonely. And it's really impactful just to see what she's doing because I wish I'd have this when I tore my ACL. So I'm going to enjoy Jordan's journey and love the story, so let's get to it.
You were a young athlete. What was your biggest dream or your biggest goal?
My biggest dream as a young athlete, well, it depends on what you classify as young, I think, because when I was a young athlete, I think really young, all I wanted to do is be like my sister. You know, it was my older sister. We're 18 months apart, so super close to one another, and she always got to do things a little bit before me, so I always wanted to be right there and be doing those things with her. So I think until I was like 8 or 9, I wanted to be like her. And then I started realizing like, oh, I really like this soccer thing. Like there's stuff beyond just this little niche that I have around me or this little community I have around me. So I started dreaming way bigger. And my dream, I remember it coming, like I remember exactly where I was sitting. I was in San Bernardino, California. We were playing regionals. I was 12 years old, and I remember watching, it was 1999, and I remember watching the U.S. women's team play on TV. We were all in this lobby, huddled around a TV. It was in between our games, and I looked at them and said, that's what I want to do in my brain. I remember that exact moment thinking, you know, that's my goal. That's my dream of where I want to be, wearing the U.S. jersey and playing in front of thousands of people.
And what about that, that game made you get that feeling?
I don't know. It's kind of weird because at that point in my career, I barely ever played. Like I sat the bench most every single game. My coach gave me courtesy minutes. So I probably played like maybe 10 minutes a game. And it's really funny that I could be going through that in my real life, like in reality. And my belief in my ability to see the game or play the game, or what I knew intuitively, like what was going to be my journey, is I knew that was going to be me. I knew that that's what I could do. And I don't know what about it made it real, but in that moment, I just remember like locking into that so deeply and knowing that that was going to be something that I pursued for a long time.
Awesome. That's great to hear that you had like a humble beginning pretty much, you know?
Yeah.
Like kind of humble beginning to where you want to go.
I got back from that trip, and my coach met with me and was like, we're going to move you down to the second team. And I was like, no, you're not. And this is funny thing because I told him no, which is like, how many times have you told your coach, like, no, you're not going to cut me? But I told him no because I was like, well, you don't have an outside left. You don't have a left-footed player. You don't have a left mid, a left defender. So give me a season and I'll be that. If I'm not your starting left outside mid at the end of the season, then you can cut me. And I ended up being that person. So I don't know. It's just a funny, like, how those events transpired.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's cool. So you're saying is that he's going to cut you, but you're like, hey, you need this, and I can be that person for you type deal.
Yeah, I saw that our team didn't have a player that was consistently playing on the left-hand side. And I was like, until you find that player, you need to give me a chance to be that player. So I don't know if it's stubbornness. I don't know if it's the ability to see the game. You know, I did sit on the bench a lot, so I did get to watch the game a lot. Yeah. And I realized, okay, well, if this is what you're going to do, you need to at least give me a shot. And just to have the courage to say that to him, who he could have still said, like, that's the thing too. He could have still said, no, like, we're going to still cut you. But he didn't. So he gave me that opportunity.
Awesome. And so when he said yes, what would your mindset like? Like, okay, I need to train more, or I need to just keep doing what I'm doing, or like, what was your process on that?
Right away, I knew exactly what I had to do. I had to train extra, and I called a coach within our club, and I said, we train on Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So every Tuesday, I would meet with this coach, and we would train, and I would not touch the ball with my right foot. I would only touch the ball with my left foot. So all my passing was with my left. All the drills that we did, the dribbling drills, the juggling drills, everything, shooting, everything was with my left foot. And I mean, I would maybe touch it just to feel what it felt like and then try to mirror it on my left side. But I was focused. I was determined that I was going to stay on the team and get my left foot just as good as my right foot.
Dope. So when you came back that next season and you were like, hey, it's my time. And what was your coach's reaction when he saw you in point two of you?
Yeah, it was pretty soon after that that coach actually left, and he went and coached in it was called WUSA. It was the first women's professional league. So, I mean, it's not like the guy doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah. He's now, he's been a U20 national team coach, and he coaches at Texas Tech. And it's funny, that adversity and that challenge early on in my career made me figure out if it was worth it or not to me, and who I was going to be in those moments of trial. And I saw him last year actually here in Colorado at a women's national team game, and we were like both, like, I was in tears because I know that he was doing what he felt like was right, but by him giving me an opportunity to prove myself, he was actually giving me an opportunity to see who I was going to be in those tough moments. So there's a real admiration we have for one another, and I'm so thankful for him. And he, I don't know what his reaction was then, but I know his reaction now is nothing but like pride and happiness for me.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So once you kind of started this new journey as on the left side, when did you kind of get that realization that, cause you kind of had in your head that you're going to be good, but when did you kind of realize it in reality that, hey, I can be good at this?
Oh, I always showed up in big moments. Like,
okay.
I played on the left side then, but I was really one of those players, like, I was content. You could play me anywhere. And I was so intrigued in the game that I wanted to know how every single player played their position. And when a coach would be talking to the forwards, I would be listening, because I was like, if I play forward, I need to know what he's saying. If I play defender, I need to know what he's saying to the defender, or she's saying to the defender. So I was just so intrigued about how the game worked and where you were supposed to be, and patterns of play and formations and where pockets of space would be, and just feeling the game. And I had this sense of showing up in big moments and scoring goals for my team. And, they weren't always the prettiest goals. Like, I wasn't scoring like a laser from 45 yards, but I was there putting goals away when we needed a goal. And I just remember my parents encouraging me and saying, I know you're running that up and down the sideline, because when you play on the outside, like, you don't touch the ball a whole lot, but if you're not in the right spot when the ball's there, you could miss these opportunities. So I just remember them encouraging me to, like, put in the work and good things will happen. I don't know when that actual realization was, because I always had this belief in myself. Like, I didn't really care what other people thought. Like, yeah. I just didn't care, because I knew that I was going to continue to get better. Like, I was the littlest person on my team until we were 17 years old. And then I just grew like like probably 8 inches in 2 years. And so I wasn't really looked at by anybody. And I never made any of the teams growing up, the regional team, the national team. We would always go to these camps in the summer, and these other girls would get chosen. And I'm like, I know they're not to say that they're not good, but I knew that I was a better soccer player than them. But because I was so small, I felt like I was overlooked, and I would get discouraged. And then about a day later, I would go back and I'd start working. And I just loved the game so much. So I don't know if it was a certain moment that I knew I was going to be good. It was this internal belief that I can't even describe where it comes from or how it was put inside of me, but it was always there. Yeah.
That's gold.
And it still is there.
Awesome. That's gold, because I meet a lot of athletes on Instagram, whatever, that are always like, I want to get out there, but I'm being told I'm too small. And I think you're kind of an example of like showing that, if you believe in yourself, the height doesn't matter. It's like you just make up for whatever you can do, be faster, be more technical, whatever. So I think that's awesome you said that. So.
Yeah, I do feel that. I think it's challenging in some sports, the height aspect. And, I did grow, and now I'm, I ended up being one of the tallest people on my team. It just was really late. But even when I was smaller, I was like, wow, what an advantage I have right now. Like I can, like, your core is such a big part of your stabilization. So I was like, I can push this person in their core with my arm. And that's not a foul because they're doing the same thing to me, but it's up by my head. Like, so I just used it. Like, I just found the advantages I could in every situation and clinged on to them.
That's awesome. So as you're getting better, you're kind of getting more experience. How was the college talk coming for you?
It was interesting. It's one of those things too that I had getting recruited to college is just a bizarre. I think it's so crazy, and the way that it works in soccer world now is really unfair to these kids. I think. Like I just saw an athlete who's 11 years old committed verbally to go to UNC. And it's really hard for me to think, like, when I was 11 years old, what college I would have chosen to go to if, that was my choice. Like, if that's all I had to do in order to get a scholarship. So I took a very different approach to it than even the people that I was around. Is I wanted to make sure every single thing about going to that school was something that I wanted to do. Or as many as possible, right? You're never going to get this perfect school situation, but you're going to try to get as close to that as possible. So Santa Clara was really good when I was 99, when I saw those women play in the World Cup. That fall, Santa Clara was probably one of the best college soccer teams ever to happen. They were like goals. They weren't giving up goals. They were scoring all these goals. They were just phenomenal. So and then the next couple of years, they were really good too. In 2001, I went to camp, just like a summer camp there. And when I got there, I was like, wow, this place is awesome. Like, I want to go there. So that was my dream school. So that was in the back of my head. But like I said, I wasn't I was overlooked as a player, and I didn't really get the looks that these other people did. So when they were all committing to go to college their junior year, I had been getting offers, but to small schools, D2 schools. And I was like, this isn't it. So I turned down a couple of full rides to some D1 schools. I know I was looked at by Missouri, by Purdue, by South Carolina, and they all offered me these really good deals, but I just didn't feel like it was right. And I waited and waited. And fortunately enough, that going into my senior year, Santa Clara, one of the coaches was my coach for the regional team, and it was the first time I ever made the regional team. And not a coincidence, right, that I grew that much. It was the first time I made the regional team, and he was the coach, and he went back and told the Santa Clara coach, like, we got to have this girl. And I'm still thankful for Curtis McAllister and everything that he did and the fight that he put up for me, because I ended up committing December 31st of my senior year. So it was halfway through my senior year. It was a really late recruit by all means. But I felt like I waited because I knew that an opportunity was going to come along that I really would want. And that was Santa Clara. I wanted to go to Santa Clara because the school is a great school. It's in the heart of Silicon Valley. It had a great business program, and that's kind of what I thought maybe I wanted to do.
And palm trees.
It had palm trees. It's like a beautiful resort. But I also knew that I wanted to play soccer, and I knew that Jerry Smith was and still is one of the most intellectual soccer coaches that there are. And I knew that even if I didn't play that much my freshman year, I knew I would figure out a way to play and I would get better as a soccer player. So I went in on a small scholarship, and I think I got 35% my first year. And by the end of my time, my last few years, I was on a full ride. So I worked into that by proving that I deserved that every single day in my attitude and my training and how I treated my teammates and my leadership. All those little things, the little things added up to, this, what was a much bigger scholarship. But if I didn't take that risk and choose the opportunity that maybe wouldn't have turned out as well, I don't think I would have gotten to where I got.
Definitely. So basically, it all started with that switch to the left side. Mm-hmm. That kind of started this. I wouldn't say not ambition, but more of just maybe the drive in you, maybe kind of help you kind of get that adversity early on.
Yeah, it was definitely a big stepping stone. I think challenge always brings out your true characteristics, and it comes to the surface what you're really made of. And some people are not challenged in life for a long time, especially athletes. Mm-hmm. There's so many really, really good athletes out there who are born and just are physically gifted. They just have the speed. They have the physical attributes that can help them succeed in their sport. But I never had that. Like I still didn't have that when I was pro. Like people constantly told me how slow I was. I was like, cool, but I'm still on the field. Like I never had to lean on my physical attributes. And so I think, or had the ability to do that. So I think that really allowed me to say, okay, well, you're going to have to do something else if you're going to get there. And that was, learning the game. That was training as much as I could. That was gathering as much information as possible. So yeah, the switch to the left side was big, but I think the adversity in that moment of trying to be cut. And I think just the challenge of, all right, you're not going to get all these gifts physically. How are you going to figure out a way to make it happen? So I just think my true characteristics and my true self really had to come out. And lucky for me, I had some grit in there.
So who better at soccer, you or your sister?
Oh, me. Gosh. My sister stopped playing after high school. She was so, like, talk about physically gifted. If I had her speed and her stature, I would have probably had a lot more ability. But I got the drive and she didn't, and she knows that and she's fine with that. But she'll definitely say me.
Cool. So once you're playing college right now, you're getting better each year. When did you have the realization that pro was really an opportunity for you to really make it happen?
Well, the only way to play pro when I was in college until my after my senior year, which was actually due to injuries, was not really my senior year. The only way to play pro was to go abroad or to play for the national team. So the national team was always something that I had my eye on, and I wanted to play for our country. And when I was after my sophomore year, so my freshman year of college, I played outside back and I was a man marker. So I had to mark the likes of Christine Sinclair, who is top 2 on most ever international goals scored for Canada and around the world. Like, she's catching Abby Wambach, who has the most goals ever scored as a professional soccer player on the international level. So I had to mark Christine Sinclair my freshman year. I had to mark Lindsay Tarpley, these players who were really big time players. That was my task, is to mark them and not let them score goals. So my coach said, so I told you I was happy being on the field and learning all these things. So when my coach said, you're going to do this, I said, okay, I'm going to try my best. Right? Did I want to play marker? Not really. Like, I would have rather played like a regular soccer player, but that wasn't what I was chosen to do. So I did my best I could, and we went to the Final Four, and unfortunately lost in the semifinal. But my sophomore year, I moved up to center forward. So I was playing the number 9. I scored 12 goals. Like, I just had a really good year. And after that, I was invited on to the U20 national team. And that is kind of the feeder system into the women's national team. So half of the girls that I played on the U20s with ended up being, not half, probably a good handful, 9, 10 of them ended being regulars on the women's national team. So I knew that was something that I could get to. It was within reach. It was right there. It was close. We trained with them. We played against them. Did I feel like I wasn't there yet? Absolutely. But I felt like I could get there. So the national team was really the way to play pro. And then towards the end of my career at Santa Clara, there was a new pro league that happened called the WPS that started after my 5th year. It started, and I had one more season of college still.
So it seems like it's almost like a domino effect for you, kind of how things kept aligning for you towards the end. Like you're kind of already playing against pro players in college, and it just kind of helped maybe like get the confidence. Like, I'm marking, her, I got this.
Yeah, I think I didn't realize that then. I just thought, like, I'm going to do my job and I'm going to do the best I can. I was so focused on the moments, like, my teammates I asked them, like, can you believe out of everybody was the one that played pro? And they're like, yeah, absolutely, Jordan. I'm like, really? And there was something about me always when I trained, when I played, like, I was all about it. Like, we're going to go and we're going to be intense and we're going to get it done. And I just had this mindfulness and this present. I was always present and, thinking about the task at hand. So I don't think in those moments I really thought, oh, wow, I'm playing against Christine Sinclair, and like, this is just like me playing for the national team for the U.S. and her playing for the Canadian national team. I was just thinking, like, this is my job. I got to do it the best I can.
So you said earlier, you said that your senior year you kind of had injuries. What kind of injuries did you go through?
Going into my senior year, so it was my junior spring, and I had just found out, since I played with the under 20s, I took a quarter off of school in order to go play with them, because we were in camps twice a month, and they were week-long camps. And so it was a lot of time that I was devoting to that. So I took a quarter off to play with them and go to the World Cup with them. And so a year later, I found out that morning that I would graduate on time if I just took an extra class each quarter. And that afternoon I went out to play, and I was going from a forward they were converting me to a defensive mid or a center back. I was kind of floating in between the two positions. So I was defending a lot more, and I just was defending a teammate of mine, and I pushed off my left foot to go right. And I looked down and my knee was in between my legs, and I knew immediately that that's not where your knee is supposed to be. And I screamed bloody murder. And, I don't remember a noise, but a friend of mine who played on the men's team was training a little bit by himself down the field. And he was like, Jordan, it sounded like a baseball bat. Like, it was, your knee made such a loud noise. And I had torn my ACL, and that was the start of a tough a little over 2 years, because I then tore my ACL again 11 months later and had to sit out not only my senior season, which was really difficult for me not to play with some of my best friends who I'd gone through college with altogether, but then the following year I redshirted again. So I had 2 fall seasons in a row where I wasn't able to participate with my team and, was rehabbing. So I got a medical redshirt and a regular redshirt and finished my 4 years of eligibility in 6 years.
Wow, like 2 back-to-back. I got my ACL in high school. It's kind of how I found your account recently. But I know, like Cameron once said, the one mental journey, but doing it twice. How did you, I guess, cope with that to still think that I want to play soccer in the future?
Well, the day I found out I tore my ACL again, so 11 months later, I was training again and probably shouldn't have trained that day. I got some bad advice from my training staff at Santa Clara saying, even if your knee is swollen, if it doesn't hurt, you can play, which is not true for anybody out there who has a swollen, any kind of joint. If your joint is swollen, your muscles that are supposed to protect the joint will not fire correctly because the nerves will be surrounded by fluid. So when you're telling them to fire, they won't be able to correctly fire. So I went out and played because I was the captain and I felt obligated to play if I could play. Even though all 3 times I tore my ACL, I knew something, my body was telling me, don't play. Like inside of me was saying, do not play today. Something is not right. But I pushed through because that's what I always do. And I went out and played, and yeah, we're crazy. And I went out and played, and about 5 minutes into our scrimmage, so Thursdays we always played against the boys in the spring, and 5 minutes in, I went up for a corner kick and I landed on my leg, and my knee shifted a little bit. Nothing like it did the first time at all, but I definitely felt it shift. And I put my hands on my knees and I took a deep breath and I said, oh my goodness, what was that? Like, I think I'm okay. I think I can run. So I played the rest of the scrimmage and I was taking like very loopy cuts. I wasn't cutting and pushing out, but I went into the trainer after that and I told her, and she was like, well, we feel a big PCL catch. Like, we're feeling your PCL catch, but maybe we should just get an MRI to check. And I didn't really know that when your PCL is the only thing that catches, then your ACL is not there. So unfortunately, that was a Thursday. I got my MRI Friday, and then I went into the doctor on Monday morning because he always came into the school. And I walked in and he said, well, you tore your ACL again. Like it was no big deal. And I was like, okay, well, I can't be here right now. And I just walked out, and actually I'm going to see this friend today. A friend of mine was in the hallway going into the training room, and I collapsed into her arms. Like, I was devastated, and I couldn't believe that was real life. And I somehow got back to my house. I don't even remember how I got back there. And my roommate was in her bed, and I crawled into the bed with her, and I couldn't stop crying. And she was like, what is going on? What is going on? And yeah, that day was really hard. It's still hard, brings up emotions thinking back to it. But I didn't, after I know those, I felt the emotions. I felt the pain and the frustration and the feelings that this might be the end. And then once those kind of subsided and I let them all out, I was like, are you kidding? Out of everything, you think that this is going to hold you back? So I just was like, all right, I can do this. I know it's not going to be easy, but I know that I was given this challenge for a reason. So I just decided that I was going to play again. Yeah. And it was I think one of the things I learned about through each of my ACLs was, your emotions are there for a reason. And if you don't allow them to be felt, then you actually are not allowing yourself to heal. So I was okay with however I felt. I was frustrated at times because I couldn't do things for myself. And I was happy at times because I accomplished something and, my range of motion came back quicker or whatever it was. Like there were so many different pieces of emotion that went into it. And I took my time and gave myself no timeline. And I think that was the biggest change between my first one and my second one. My first one, I was like, I got to get back as fast as I can. And that's not really the case ever. Like I started thinking like, I just want to be healthy again. So I took my time and it paid off for a while.
Awesome. So you still want to go pro?
I knew that in order to play professionally, so going after my 5th year is when the WPS started. And so I was going into my 6th year fall with the knowledge that like, this could be it. Like, once you get injured to that extreme, you have such a better understanding of like how blessed we are to play a sport. And so I was really I didn't even think beyond what was going on in my world. I was happy to be training. I was happy to be a part of a team and be a captain on a team where I was 22 years old or 23. How old was I? 23. And these girls were 17, 18 years old, right? So like I felt happy to be a mentor and to be playing again and to be leading on the field. So I definitely embraced my senior season to its fullest ability. Like I loved every single moment of it and knew that if I didn't focus on that, then nothing would come in the future. So I didn't really think about playing pro until after the season, and I put my name into the draft and got drafted. Got drafted. Yeah, it was a really cool experience. I mean, it is a big deal, and I don't want to ever put it down because it, not a lot of athletes. There's so many athletes out there, and not a lot of them can ever, say like I got to live my dream, and I feel super blessed and I think that's thankful that I got to pursue that. And so the draft was in January. We finished in December. We lost in this Elite Eight at Stanford. And I actually had a torn meniscus. I had torn my meniscus earlier in the season that I had gotten repaired with my first ACL. I had torn my meniscus, and during the Stanford game, my meniscus, so I don't know if you know much about a meniscus, but it's supposed to coat your knee, right, and protect the joint and allow it to slide correctly. And so my meniscus had flapped over, the part that was torn, it had flapped over, and it was like someone was stabbing me with a knife in my knee the whole entire game. And I told my coach, do not take me out of the game. I am playing this game. Because I knew that could have been, like, who knows? Like, that was potentially my last game. Was it smart? No. But I played that game, and we lost on we played so well, and we lost on this stupid call and this beautiful free kick by Teresa Noyola. I will never forget that. But after that, I got drafted the next, about a month and a half later. My parents and I went to Philadelphia and sat in the draft room, and I got drafted 16th overall to the Boston Breakers, and it was just a really, really cool moment and a special moment I got to share with my parents.
So I know ACL kind of had a big part of your life. So what led you to start the ACL Club?
I started the ACL Club because after my first year pro, so I played pro for Boston. I was the leading rookie goal scorer and was on this amazing team who set me up for a lot of goals, and got named to top 11 of the league, best 11 in WPS amongst like all these amazing players. Had a really good year. I was playing with the national team the following year. So January, February, I was in camps with the national team. I come into camp for my Boston team in March, flying high, like playing so well. And my first game of my second season pro, I score a goal about 20 minutes in. It seems like it's off to a good start. And 10 minutes later, I was at half field and I got tackled and I tore my ACL for the third time. And I knew right when I got tackled that I had torn my ACL, and I was a wreck. Like I do not cuss, and I was cussing. And that phone call that I made to my parents in the locker room when I went into the locker room was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. Because it wasn't just me going through it, you know, it was my family too. And, you know, that's difficult. So I went home to I got my surgery at home. I did most of my rehab at home. I went back to Boston for a little bit just to be with my team towards the end of the season. But unfortunately, I guess, the league actually folded at the end of that year. So the following year there was no league. So I had to get my bones grafted in May, and I got my ACL in October, since it was my third time tearing my ACL. So I knew that the process was going to be about 5 months, at least 5 months longer. But I also knew, like, there was no league. So what was the point of, like, saying, like, I'm going to go play again if there was no league? So my whole mindset had changed to, like, okay, if you're going to play again, like, you have to be the best you. So my rehab was, like, slow and controlled, and my mindset was like, all right, let's just get Jordan. Well, I want to get Jordan back again. Like, I want to know who I am. So 3 years later, after I tore my ACL, a new league had come about. I had gotten drafted into that league. I didn't play the first year because I was nowhere near ready, because I was only rehabbing to be the best Jordan, not the best soccer player. So once I found out the league was there, I was like, okay, well, let's just, like, up the ante a little and see if I could possibly do this. And I went to DC in 2014, and I went there on a 2-week trial and ended up earning a spot on the team, and played that season with DC. I didn't play a whole lot. My mentality and my role on the team was a lot different, but I loved being back with a team, and I loved playing soccer again. And after that season, I got traded to Buffalo, to a team in Buffalo, New York. And it was one of the teams that I was like, I knew I was going to get traded, but I had told my coach, like, okay, because of my injuries, can we potentially move me to a place where, can you talk first and foremost to these teams that play on grass, so I could probably save my body a little bit. So Buffalo was not a team I ever thought I was going to be going to. And so once I found out I was going to Buffalo, I remember juggling. I went out on my own. There's a field by my house called Rooney Road. I think it's Rooney Road. And I was juggling, and I just remember I'm a pretty faithful person, and I felt like in that moment when I was juggling, like, I had this moment with God where he was like, you need to start the ACL club. And I was like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't even know what that is. So I went home and I started, like, okay, what is this gonna mean? I just felt like God hadn't put me through 3 ACLs on the same knee and brought me through all the stuff that we just kind of talked about, the perseverance, the grit, the resilience, if it wasn't for nothing. So I was like, okay, if I help one person not ever have to go through what I went through in tearing their ACL 3 times, then I will win. I will have done what I'm supposed to do. My thought is, going through this whole process, so in the midst of all these ACL tears, I would get calls from my college coach. I would get calls from my club coach. Anybody and everyone that knew me would be like, hey, I have a player who tore their ACL. Can they talk to you? And I was like, absolutely. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I don't know technically what what all the doctors do and what the physical therapists do, but I know what it feels like to be in those moments of distress and vulnerability and grief. And I just felt like I could unite a community that already existed. I already felt like when I went to the gym and I saw somebody doing sit-ups next to me and they had a scar on their knee, like, I don't even know your name, bud, but like, I know that we've been through the same thing. So I wanted to bring light to this community that was already out there and that had already shared these common bonds. And so the ACL Club grew out of that, out of service that I felt like I was called to do, that my life journey had kind of led me to this. And it has been so fulfilling in the fact that I do not want people to join the ACL Club. That is not what this is about. What this is about is we're athletes, we're active people, and injuries are going to happen whether we try to avoid them or not. Are there ways to reduce the risk of injury? Absolutely. And that's something that I'm working very hard on, teaching young kids how to move their bodies more correctly in order to reduce their risks of injuries in general. But if injuries are going to happen, then I want people to feel like they're supported throughout the journey. And so the ACL Club is a place that encourages, inspires, and empowers people to know that there's going to be trials, there's going to be triumphs through this whole ACL recovery journey, but that you're going to get through it, and we're going to be there supporting you through the whole thing.
Awesome. So what year was this when you started it?
I started it so when I was in Buffalo, which was, years for me. So this is 2015. 2015. Yeah,
Okay.
I was juggling in January, and I was really contemplating, like, do I even go to Buffalo? Do I even play anymore? And I felt like, you know what? I felt like God was giving me the ability to not only lead a group of people and show up and show that, like, all things are possible through him, but also that I was going to start this journey that was going to help me kind of transition from sport to after sport. So I went there, and I was blessed with this group of young players. I was the oldest. There was two of us that were in our late 20s. One of us was 30. I was 29 and she was 30. First weekend, she tears her ACL. I am now the oldest person, and I'm helping her through her ACL. And I have a group of, there's 20 players on a team, and 11 of them were rookies.
Oh, wow.
So my leadership and my ability to stand up for those players and let them know that, I would do anything for them, and that I would even not get along with my coach because I felt like their well-being should come first and foremost. So it was a challenging year for me. I ended up getting waived, but in that process, I had not only found that I was impacting these lives greatly, right? And creating so many good relationships, but I had started the ACL Club, and I was on my way to creating this community that would last for a long time.
Awesome. So we kind of worked towards wrapping up a little bit. So how is this journey so far with the ACL Club going?
It's been going well. I think it's really challenging, and I talk about this a lot with other athletes who have started different things or have gone into the workforce, like that transition. What's really interesting as an athlete is you can put the work in and you can see success pretty quickly, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to work on a new move, and you go out in the backyard and you work on your scissors, and then you get it, and then you do the move at practice and you do the move at training, and you're like, look at me, I just got a lot better. It's not like that in the real world when you're working. There's so many factors that it is reliant upon. So I run the ACL Club. I'm also a sports broadcaster. So I called like 62 soccer games this year. So that's more than a game a week. And it was a lot, and the season's only from March to really October. And so I was kind of juggling these two things, and it hasn't gone as quickly as I think it would have, right? But at the same time, I get messages, maybe not every day, maybe every other day, of thank you, of this has helped me so much. I have people sending me pictures of them wearing ACL Club gear and saying like, I wore this to PT and I realized that like, this is a club that always has my back. Just little things that I can't ask for anything more. Like, yeah, we don't have 1,000, 100,000 followers on Instagram. I don't, I'm not making enough money to support myself, but I'm doing really, I'm doing things that are really impactful on people's lives. And I'm in the process of doing a really cool research project next year that I can't wait to share with everybody, and hope that what I'm doing is going to continue to impact a lot of life. So has it gone smoothly? No. Has it gone exactly how maybe I thought it was going to be? No, but I'm not going to give up on it, because I just feel so called to big things, to changing the way that insurance companies give rehabilitation, that in order to set athletes up for success post ACL surgery, they need more than 20 visits to their physical therapist, to figuring out a way to teach young athletes how their bodies work, what it means to fire your glutes, how that feels, why firing your glutes and your posture and your core, how properly using your core can help prevent you, while strengthening your feet, all these things that you don't learn until you're older, that maybe we can teach these young athletes and really make an impact that way. That once they're in these years where we're seeing all these ACL tears, maybe they're not tearing their ACL as much, but it's not because of what they're doing here. It's what they did when they were 10, 11, 12. You learn, I always think of this. When you want to become a swimmer, you go to swim lessons. When you want to become any kind of sport that involves running, you just go to this sport. You don't learn how to run. You don't learn how to cut. You don't learn all those things that can actually aid your body to properly perform. So I think we have to kind of go back to basics and help these young athletes learn how to properly move their bodies. So I have big dreams. As always.
I'm with you on that. That's something I kind of realize. I relate to like with 9 Point. Cause I realized that, like for me, like the ACL thing, this overall the journey of being a walk-on. I realized that I felt alone on a lot of that stuff, because I felt athletes were kind of told to kind of hold in our emotions, not to share our journey. Mm-hmm. And it's like there's so many kids that go through that depression because they don't have anyone to be with. So I really much thanks for you.
Yeah, I just started this book. It's called The Mask of Masculinity. Have you heard of it?
No, I have not. I need to check it out.
So in the first, I literally started it this morning, and it talks about the masks that we wear, especially for men. And I talk a lot about this to the guys that I work with is, it's okay to show that you're emotional, that you have feelings, and it actually makes you stronger by acknowledging them. And because unfortunately, our culture, our society, not only are you a man, but you're an athlete too. So that's like a double, I have to be strong, but you are strong. Like you don't have to be that way. You are. And actually showing how you feel or expressing how you feel doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger. I put up a quote today on the ACL Club that is kind of along this lines. It's by Brene Brown. She said, vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they are never weakness. And I think that's so true when you talk about those, that idea of showing emotions, because that is being vulnerable, right? Mm-hmm. But in order to be who you really are, you have to show that. You have to feel that. You have to be able to express it.
Love it. Way to end it right there. I love it. Awesome. So I we kind of end this right now. So what are your websites, your LinkedIn, and we can kind of mention this?
You can follow me at the ACL Club on Instagram. I'm at ACL Club on Twitter. And then the aclclub.com is my website, and where I have links to the podcast And the podcast that I do is called Show Your Scars, and it's interviewing all different athletes of how they got through their injuries. Athletes, actually, I talk to sports psychologists and physical therapists and doctors, and you name it, I talk to them trying to get to the bottom of this. And what else do I have on there? I have some videos I have created for people's scar stories that they just kind of tell in little 5-10 minute videos about people's journeys. So you can check out the ACL Club and see all that.
And some dope shirts. Like
and some dope shirts, right? Like I'm wearing now. I know. Isn't this cool?
Let's go.
So it is let's go, but I wanted to put this in like parentheses. Parentheses looked weird, so I had to do these slashes. Because you have to let go, right? You have to let go of this control that you think you have, but you also have to work hard. So it's a double meaning, and yeah, I like the shirts. I think they're cool.
Jordan, you're awesome. Much respect for what you're doing, because I think it's much needed. I wish I would have had this when I was in 2011 when I tore my ACL. So I much respect what you're doing. So
I wish I would have been there too. Thank you so much. And I love what you're doing too. It's cool to hear all these different athletes' stories.
Awesome. Well, you have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's try the end of the year is a little busy for me, but hopefully we can get you on my podcast at the beginning of the year.
Sounds great. I would love to be on there.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll talk soon. Let me know when you post this, and I'll make sure I share it as well.
Cool beans. You the best.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Yo, thanks for listening to this episode of the 9 Point Started With a Dream podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please comment, share, leave a review. We would love to hear your thoughts. You can find more athlete-driven content at 9point.com. Till the next episode, you're only one opportunity away. Peace.